Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Juliet Ouma. I am the Programs Assistant at African Pharmaceutical Network, and I want to welcome you in this call and acknowledge your presence in this call, and thank you so much for making time to be here with us. We are at 4:01. The session is supposed to start at 4:05. So we'll give our colleagues 4 more minutes to join us. Then once we have the quorum, we'll be able to start. But in the meantime, please feel free to introduce yourself on the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from. You can also share your LinkedIn account so that we can connect with you on LinkedIn as well. It would be lovely to connect with you. So let us know who you are and where you're joining us from. Thank you so much. We'll be able to start at 4:05 sharp. Thank you, Shahel Ahmed. Nice to see you, sir, in this call again. Thank you. Acknowledge your presence. Manisha, how are you? Damaris, I see you. Lucy, thank you for joining us. Dr. Drasha Smith is here with us as well. Good afternoon, Doc. How are you? I have Victor. I have Dickens here. Thank you for joining us. I'm just skimming through. Who else can I see here? I can see Sharon Hobbs. I hope you're doing well. Dr. Kelvin Musyoki is also here with us. Good afternoon, sir. Hope you're doing well. Dr. Samson Bosire, I see you. Christopher, I see you. I acknowledge your presence in the room. Ziyad is here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Dr. Kennedy Odokonyego is in this call with us as well. Good afternoon, Doc, and I hope you're well. Kate, thank you for joining us. Karibu sana. Gabriel, thank you. If I don't mention your name, please don't hold a grudge against me. I'm just skimming through. Bridget, I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us. Paul, I see you. Eobed, I see you as well, sir. Thank you for joining us. Jessica Achieng is here with us. Thank you. Who else am I seeing? Someone with the initials MW. Okay, thank you for joining us, Stella. I hope you're well. So I'll just give the rest 2 minutes to join us, and then we'll be able to kick off the call. But in the meantime, please introduce yourself on the chat. Thank you. It's 4:05, and we'd love to kick off the session this afternoon. So thank you once again for joining us. To those who have just joined us in the last few minutes, welcome. My name is Juliet Ouma. I am the Programs Assistant at African Pharmaceutical Network, and thank you for joining us for this industry discussion forum, where we will be discussing the advancements in strengthening safety surveillance systems in Africa, with a keen focus on vigilance in medical devices and vaccines. This session has been curated in partnership with ISOP Africa chapter. They are one of our partners, and we'll be able to get to understand the kind of work they are also doing as well in this session. So our speakers are Dr. Luis and Dr. Pio. I'll be able to introduce them officially in the next few minutes. But for now, just get to know that these are our speakers today, and we appreciate each and every one of you joining us in this session. So quickly, the program that we have for today, I will take us through the introduction of African Pharmaceutical Network, and I'm also joined with Dr. Jayesh Pandit, and he is the representative of ISOP Africa chapter. He will be taking us through the introduction of ISOP, and then we'll have the presentation from our speakers. We'll have a brief Q&A session towards the end for 20 minutes, and then we'll be able to close out the session for this day. So with that, I can go through a few housekeeping rules. So these are the housekeeping rules that we have for us this afternoon. Please note that the session is being recorded for future reference. And after the end of the call, we are going to be able to share the recording link with you in your email inboxes, so that you can have the link with you always in your inbox. And then please note that your microphones and videos are muted, and this is to minimize background noise. But when we get towards the Q&A session, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll be able to enable your mic so that you can voice your question or any concerns that you may have. In the meantime, while the session is ongoing, please feel free to use the chat feature to network, comment, and ask any questions. And when you're engaging with the colleagues on this call, you are encouraged to engage respectfully. Then, in case you're having any technical issues or technical support, please share your challenge on the chat. Let us know you're having a challenge on the chat. I'll be able to assist you. If you have our WhatsApp number, please feel free to text me on WhatsApp as well. I'll be able to assist you. For feedback or any comments that you'd like to share with the African Pharmaceutical Network, you're encouraged to share your feedback with us through our official email address, which is secretariat@africanpharmanetwork.net. Thank you. So moving on swiftly, who is African Pharmaceutical Network, and why do we exist as an organization? For what purpose? So African Pharmaceutical Network is a Pan-African network that brings together pharmaceutical professionals, stakeholders, and organizations for the purpose of knowledge sharing, policy shaping, and innovation nurturing partnerships, all leading towards reliable access to safe, quality, and effective health products and technologies for the people of the African continent. So APN was established in 2020 in the backdrop of COVID-19 for three specific reasons. And these reasons were challenges that we had seen in the industry. And these fueled our desire to strengthen the pharmaceutical system within Africa. And these challenges were limited local manufacturing in Africa, mostly attributed to capacity shortfalls in the continent. As we know, Africa is the second largest continent after Asia. With the number of people that we have and the high disease burdens that we have, we also realize that our capacity to manufacture our own pharmaceutical products is also wanting. So for us as an organization, we came together and we asked ourselves, how then can we empower the pharmaceutical system in Africa, the pharmaceutical industry in Africa, through local manufacturing, that we are able to manufacture from the API to the finished products. These are the pharmaceutical products that we are bringing in the industry to help the patients across Africa. So because of this, APN was established. Then we had the challenge of segregated and disjointed pharmaceutical systems. And while we are looking at how the industry works, we ought to work in collaboration. Each and every industry, each and every field, each and every sector, we need to collaborate so that we are able to work towards the common goal. If we are all working towards one common goal, and this is to ensure that there is access to safe and quality medicines then we can work together. If we are not working together towards that common goal, then at given times we will find ourselves deviating from the purpose. But when we are working together, we maintain our focus on the goal and we are able to meet and attain that which is most important to us. And then there was a lack of a single common platform to convince stakeholders to chart a path for the future of the industry. This is why APN is known as a network. It is a platform where all stakeholders in the industry can come together to converse and find solutions for the problems that are on ground today. So in this call, I am grateful because we are not only joined by those who are practicing in regulatory affairs, we are not only joined by vigilance professionals, but I also know that we have regulators. There are those from research who are in this call. There are those from academia. So I welcome each and every one of you to take advantage of the platform APN is offering and be able to work together with us. So this is our mission and our vision, and it is to ensure reliable access to safe, quality, and effective medicines in Africa. As an organization, we have core values, but at the core of it is humanity. For everything that we do as an organization, we ensure that we protect the human being, that we are able to impact the life of a human being in a positive way. So when we engage, we are always aware that the person who is experiencing the benefits of the work that we are doing is a human being, and we are able to empower them and make sure that their well-being is always of a concern to us. So this has been our journey in the last 5 years or so, from conceptualization all the way to 2025. This has been our journey, signing partnerships with industry partners as well, and also engaging in different kinds of sessions. We are also able to launch the Pharmacy Academy, where we support professionals and empower them to have the right skill and the right knowledge in the work that they are doing in the industry. And in 2024, we were able to scale up the academy, where we were offering 1 course in RA, and currently we are offering 3 courses, that is regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance, and pharmaceutical supply chain management. So our services, we have the pharmaceutical logos development, regulatory support, business ecosystem support, and policy shaping. I'll be sharing these slides with you so that you can have a keen look at them, and then you can engage with us in the pillar that is most suited to your expertise and the work of your organization. This has been our leadership team, the advisory board. And we have Dr. John Paul Omolo Kirtinasai and Dr. MacDonald Nose. The management team is in the able hands of Dr. Odembo David, our curator, and then with the rest are my colleagues as well in the African Pharmaceutical Network, right? Then we are also a membership organization. If you'd like to join the African Pharmaceutical Network, we welcome you to sign up for membership in either of the categories that is most suited to you or your organization. We have student membership, professional membership, and we also have the institutional membership. So please get to sign up and join the African Pharmaceutical Network. These are our courses under the Pharmacy Academy. And currently we have the regulatory affairs training cohort 3, which kicked off 2 weeks ago. And we are joined by 25 professionals from across Africa training for the course with us. So if you'd like to enroll, please take advantage of this time and enroll with us. We will be closing out the enrollment in the coming week. And then for pharmaceutical supply chain management, the next enrollment will be in January. For pharmacovigilance, please join us for pharmacovigilance training, cohort 3, which is set to begin in September. So we welcome you to enroll right now. This is the moment. And it is also going to be our final cohort for the year 2025. These are our partners, and we definitely acknowledge ISOP Africa chapter, who are our implementing partners for the session today. So thank you so much to ISOP for the partnership and the work that they are doing as well. So how can you engage with African Pharmaceutical Network? You can become a member of APN. You can partner with us on projects, or you can get to learn with us at our incredible Pharmacy Academy. Take advantage of every opportunity. Feel free to reach out to us. We will always be there to support you and to encourage you. Thank you so much. And with that, I want to welcome my colleague, Dr. Jayesh Pandit, to take us through the introduction of ISO Africa chapter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Good afternoon, good day to everyone. Just to reconfirm, can you see my screen?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Super. So I'll try and give a very brief update on who ISOP is. And to start off, my name is, as you heard, Dr. Jayesh Pandit. I am at ISOP Africa chapter, and I'm the treasurer there. And I bring warm regards from the leadership team that we have. I am aware that a few people will join from our side as well. They may already have been here, but let me give you an introduction as to how this collaboration has come up. So it was in February this year that the APN and ISOP chapter for Africa signed a collaborating agreement where we would like to bring in and share knowledge across the continent, and of course at the benefit of those who are joining us from outside the continent. This is guided by the work being done by AU3S project, and this partnership, as you can read, establishes that unique framework. And I'll try and show you how ISOP Africa as well as APN in our own respective two domains have such a unique framework and why this collaboration makes even more sense. At APN and ISOP Africa, and today's call will be proof of the same, we are trying to bring to everybody a practice-informed, policy-guided, and competency-based training program in the area of pharmacovigilance. We have so many projects that do go around at a global level, but how do we bring in and harness that into Africa and make it even more relevant to our current time in our various levels of practice, as Juliet has mentioned. This helps us to shape policy engagements with regulatory authorities. So where we see gaps, where we see opportunities of improvement, then this is where APN and ISOP Africa chapter come in. Again, in my next slides, you will see that both APN and ISOP Africa chapter, we have this unique wealth of knowledge that can truly help everybody get a different flavor of how solutions can be driven and be brought into Africa and from Africa to the world. So the long-term strategy is for each and every one, but of course, at the core of our discussion lies our patients. So a quick overview of the Africa chapter. We started in 2010. It's an independent non-profit group of ISOP members, that is International Society of Pharmacovigilance, people interested in patient safety all across the world. And we started with our name as the Africa Society of Pharmacovigilance. And then we rebranded ourselves. We came directly under ISOP, and hence you hear us calling ourselves as the Africa chapter of ISOP. We have the executive committee that I belong to, which was inaugurated last year, July. And for clarity purpose, we are not registered in any country within or outside Africa as ISOP Africa. ISOP is, but ISOP Africa is not, and you would understand why, because it is for Africa, and we can't just establish ourselves in one of the countries and have documents that come out from one country. Nevertheless, it is an institution that is led by our advisory board, as you can see over here, a complete global flavor. As you can see, many might recognize names or familiar faces from your respective interactions across the world, but it is truly a global institution, bringing in that umbrella where patient safety matters, right? And those who are up to date with ISOP activities would know that this year, in fact, beginning in the next couple of days, we will now be having our upcoming elections as we replace this board. The board will terminate in October 2025, and the new board will then take over. As much as I say that, our objectives, and you heard what Juliet said, then this is to develop and foster pharmacovigilance across Africa. We believe that we can bring in that unique support to really revamp PV activities within any country in Africa. Our membership is within Africa as well as global, but the people within Africa are well equipped to guide any country today who wants to build up a PV system, and we have the competence to support you so that we can take you to that level where you and your country can become a full member of the WHO ISO program as well. We look at and encourage local research in the areas of PV across Africa. And we have regular workshop. I know my colleagues are here who champion this for us, who take us on social media and let the world know what we are up to and what we are doing, just like today's session was also brought up. Not wasting too much time, but this is putting a name to the face that you might know. And it is truly Pan-African, where with each one that you see over here has got a wealth of experience, not just for a few years, but for several decades in the area of pharmacovigilance. What our chapter does is we have the executive committee, we have bi-weekly meetings, we have general and annual meetings in person, we have meetings every 2 months for the whole of the Africa chapter, and like I mentioned earlier, we've got a presence on social media, our newsletters are out there on a monthly basis. So mine is to encourage everyone that as much as I encourage you to also become a member of APN, I want you in the same breath to also take up membership at ISOP. And I'll try and paint you a small picture of why ISOP matters, right? So this is what ISOP has been doing. And our executive committee truly lies on 3 pillars that support us, and that is our research and academia team. We've got the public relations and communications team, and then we've got the practice and regulatory team. So these are the names and faces that you see behind. Again, some I'm sure you will recognize, but truly experienced personnel who are able to lead us in Africa to bring in what truly matters to our patients in terms of their safety through medicines. So these are the activities that happen in our 3 pillars of research and academia, practice and regulatory, public relations and communications. And just to give you an insight, there are good things already brewing from where I see, where I sit, and there is so much that we will be able to offer for the few months that's remaining towards the end of 2025, but there is more being harnessed and curated for 2026 and beyond. So mine is to encourage everyone, come in, you will learn something new. those who attended our call 2 weeks ago on the 12th, you would support me in confirming that we learned a whole new picture on areas of nanomedicine and how does patient safety, how does pharmacovigilance come in there. Likewise, you can see the various monthly meetings that we've had before. And heads up to World Patient Safety Day. This is an international day celebrated on 17th of September each year. And this year we've got a lot of interesting presentations, discussions that are coming up with this year's theme, which is safe care for every newborn and every child, and where we put patient safety first from the start. So our activities will begin on the 10th, and this year we have some fun activities as well. We've got a strategic plan. I encourage everyone to read up on this, and you will find definitely a platform where you fit in and you can already plug in with your experience and help us take patient safety to a different level in Africa. We continue to do this, but just to summarize in the interest of time, I encourage everyone that we have the ISOP global meeting that's coming up in Cairo, which is 24th to 27th of October. So I encourage everyone to please pick this up. I'm sharing the QR code in my next slide. But at the same time, the Africa chapter, the way that last year we all met in Kampala, Uganda, then next year the Africa chapter will be hosted by Namibia. So we are, all roads go to Windhoek, and this will be May 18 to 20th next year in Namibia. So start planning the same there. This is the Cairo meeting, wealth of experience coming in there. We've got the pyramids that are already an attractive factor for several, but the whole theme behind this year's conference is back to the future. So truly for anyone who is an expert in terms of PV, or you are a newcomer, this is your opportunity to come in and learn and share. So this is what I mentioned about Namibia. Again, encouraging everyone that let's come in together and paint the picture of patient safety for Africa together. My call again as my last item to encourage everyone to become a member. This is where we fall in, right? So it's a very reduced subsidized fee compared to what is paid in high-income countries. And you can see here the reduced membership, where either we are from low and middle-income countries, affected to a commercial organization, and if you in the audience today are from our not-for-profit organization, then it is that 49 euro fee. Something that is truly affordable, I believe, across the world, across Africa. And for that, all you have to do is scan this QR code that will take you to the link and will help facilitate your membership. So again, my slides will be shared later on as well. So please feel free to go through all this and understand why a member of ISOP will help you and the benefits that it brings across to you. We have special interest groups, as you can see highlighted here, where you can come and share and learn. I personally look after the Eco-Pharmacovigilance Special Interest Group. I was happy to have been invited by EPN a couple of sessions ago, where I elaborated on how a greener environment is something that's important to each one of us. So with that, I again hand over Juliet to you, as I encourage everyone that what is happening today with our two speakers is we are again pushing the boundary on pharmacovigilance. We are moving from the traditional pharmacovigilance of medicines to what we have in place as vaccinovigilance and vigilance to medical devices. So a whole new other frontier that we want to bring to you. So follow ISOP, follow APN, and let's do this for Africa together. Over to you, and from the east coast of ISOP Africa, Asante Nisada. Over to you, Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jayesh, for that wonderful introduction to the organization ISOP Africa chapter. And without much further ado, I want to welcome our speakers for the session this afternoon. That is Dr. Luis and Dr. Pio. And our topic of discussion is advancements in strengthening safety surveillance systems in Africa, with a key focus on vigilance in medical devices. So I will quickly read their bio, and then we can get to receive insights from them. So who is Dr. Luis? Dr. Luis Rosa is a scientist working with the Global Health Protection Program at Paul Ehrlich Institute in Germany. She supports regulatory system strengthening and capacity building in pharmacovigilance and clinical trials oversight to improve access to quality assured, safe and effective vaccines in African partner countries. She holds a PhD in pharmacy and has previously completed her Master of Science in Molecular Medicine. That is Dr. Luis. Then who is Dr. Pio? Dr. Pio is a German-based African healthcare professional, currently part of the Global Health Protection Program as a scientist in the VAC-TRIN project, capacitating African NRAs in areas of pharmacovigilance and clinical trials, regulatory oversight. She is a general practitioner with experience in clinical medicine, occupational health, and pharmacovigilance at the global, regional, and national levels. And with that, I want to welcome Dr. Luis to take over the session. Then we'll get to hear from Dr. Pio as we continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. We are now starting to project our slides. I will wait a few seconds until they appear. So thank you very much for this kind introduction, and also a warm welcome from us, warm greetings from Germany. And we sincerely thank the APN network for inviting us and for giving us the opportunity to present on a topic that moves us every day. This is advancements in strengthening safety surveillance systems in Africa, vigilance in medical devices and vaccines.
Dr. Luis, pardon me, your screen is not yet showing.
Juliet, it is showing on my side.
It is? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jayesh.
Maybe somebody else can also reconfirm if they can see.
Also showing from my end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got some thumbs up, so it seems to be working.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we proceed?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you for this kind introduction. So I can move directly to the next slide. And here's our disclaimer.
Mute yourself.
So the views that we express in this presentation are our personal individual views. They should not be understood or cited as opinions of the Paul Ehrlich Institute. We have not received any funding or grants from companies or from associations representing companies. For the reproduction and distribution of information and data from this presentation is prohibited without prior written consent of the presenter and of the Media and Public Relations unit at our institute. And this also applies to the production and distribution of excerpts from the presentation. We also take no liability for topicality and completeness of the information provided. After this short disclaimer, I would like to lead you through the contents of this of the next minutes. We are going first going to introduce why are we actually here? Why are we able to speak about this very important topic? We are going to introduce the Global Health Protection Program and specifically the project we are working in, the VacTrain project. Then we would like to do a short excursion to Europe, just to have a comparator. We want to highlight the pharmacovigilance landscape, as well as important guidelines and guiding documents. And then my colleague Theo will take over to talk about medical device regulation. Then she's going to give us a small insight into the German system, into the regulatory framework in Germany, about the tasks of the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, and also highlighting medical device regulation. And actually, our main focus of this presentation will be on the African continent. We're going to talk about AMA, the vision for AMA, the regional regulation, and we are specifically focusing on challenges in this system and how these challenges are overcome. This is in the section regulatory areas for improvement. And lastly, we would like to dedicate a few minutes to talk about reliance as a sustainable solution before Theo gives us an overview on how to move forward. In the next two slides, I would like to introduce you to the Global Health Protection Program, short GHPP, and the VacTrain project, and how this fits quite well in the topic of advancement of regulatory systems. So, in light of the then Ebola crisis during the G7 summit in June 2015, which was hosted by Germany, leaders addressed global health thematic priorities. And the German Ministry of Health founded the Global Health Protection Program, short GHPP, in this context. Now, the VacTrain project is one of 54 different projects within this GHPP umbrella. And the objective of our VacTrain project is to strengthen capacity of national medicines regulatory authorities, short NRAs, in the areas of clinical trials, short CT, approval and oversight, and on pharmacovigilance, short PV, and post-approval safety monitoring. And our overall goal is to improve access to quality-assured, safe, and effective vaccines in Africa. Specifically, our project is located at the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, short PI. The PI is the Federal Institute for Vaccines and Biomedicines in Germany. And within our institute, we actually have 3 GHPP projects, VacTrain 2.0. This means we are already in the second phase of our project. We also have colleagues focusing on lot release of vaccines. Their project is called VacRelease. And also we have colleagues working with blood products. Their project is called VacTrain. The VacTrain partner countries, and you can see them on the map on the right-hand side, are Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Senegal, South Africa, Rwanda. We are also providing ARPA support via the agencies in Ghana as well as Zimbabwe. Additionally, we are working on global and pan-African level together with WHO, WHO Afro, AMRH, AUDA-NEPAD, and AVAREF. And our current funding period lasts until end of this year. Now I would like to take you on a short excursion to the EU, shortly highlighting the PV landscape in our region. As you might be aware, the European Medicines Agency, short EMA, coordinates pharmacovigilance in the EU and also operates services and processes in line with EU legislation. And here you can see listed the legal requirements which are related to the EMA PV system. Especially to note is we are talking about human medicines for human use and not veterinary products. We have regulation number 726, Directive 2001, and the Commission implementing regulation number 520, which implement the legal requirements. The EMA PV responsibilities include, for example, the collection of data, analysis and signal identification, assessment of risk management plans, case reports, but also periodic aggregate safety reports such as PSOs or PBAs. We are inspecting marketing authorization holders, and doing risk evaluation as well as risk management. In the next slide, I would like to highlight what is actually the role of the member states within the EMA environment, and what is the role of the EMA. So I would like to highlight this on the example of the signal management process. So the process commences on the left-hand side of the screen. You can see that signal detection, signal validation, as well as signal confirmation activities are done on an EMA level. That means on the level of member states, and also on marketing authorization holder, short MAH level. However, the actual analysis of the signal, the assessment of the signal, and the recommendation for action is made in the PRAC. PRAC is short for Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, and it is a committee which is created by rapporteurs which are sent out from NRAs of the different member states. For example, from the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, you will also find a rapporteur in this PRAC, in this expert committee. And these experts then really assess the signals and recommend an action. And then this goes to all the stakeholders, so to the individual countries, which then are there to implement the recommendations made by the PRAC. And by this, the EU really uses the resources effectively by establishing such expert committees. On the next slide, I would like to highlight some important guidelines and guiding documents. From the EMA, we have the guidelines on good pharmacovigilance practices. And this is a whole set of guidelines that covers the different aspects and areas of pharmacovigilance. And you can assess these guidelines on the EMA webpage. On the next slide, I also highlight more international guidelines, for instance, from the International Conference on Harmonization, short ICH guidelines. And here I would like to highlight that, for instance, the guidelines are directly adopted from EMA, ensuring a really international level for the actions in TB. Further, there are WHO guidance documents on specific topics, such as the Global Manual on Surveillance of Adverse Events Following Immunization, short AUFI. And after this, I would like to hand over to my colleague Theo to talk a bit more about medical device regulation.
Thank you, Louisa. I hope I am audible. If somebody could kindly confirm.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I think I'm speaking for the first time, so I should greet. So Louisa has just taken us over our system here in the European Union in terms of regulation. And you will note that in what she has presented so far, she was highlighting that the regulations are for vaccines as well as other medicinal products. And now we will discuss how it looks in terms of medical device regulation. So immediately it will become obvious that in the European Union, we have different laws for regulating medicinal products, including vaccines, and different laws for regulating medical devices. And we actually even separate the difference between medical devices and what we call in vitro diagnostics. So the EMA, again, as the central regulating body for the entire region, is responsible for evaluating the quality, safety, and efficacy of every application that is made for a medical device or an in vitro diagnostic device. And these applications that are submitted at the EMA would be what we call central applications, meaning they are not for a single country, but they are for the entire region. And also of interest is to note that when it comes to safety issues of medical devices and in vitro diagnostic devices, there is also a central database. It's called AUDA-NEPAD. And we have a separate central database for ADRs and ICSRs and those things that are related to vaccines and medicinal products, which is called AUDA-Vigilance. So we have two absolutely separate systems altogether. And this is not to say that the system is superior in any way or form, but it is just to allow you to see how things look in other regions, specifically the European region, because this is where we are based. And our system is divided into two. So we have this regional regulatory level, but we also have a national regulatory level. So the regional laws, the one that was highlighted in the previous slide, both for the medical device and for the in vitro diagnostics, they are not all-inclusive. There are still some aspects which are not within the scope of the regulations, and this is to allow member states, meaning the countries within the EU, to decide for themselves certain aspects that they will regulate in their own countries. So us being a German institute, we will show you as an example how it then looks to regulate medical devices or in vitro diagnostics within an EU country, even though we have this regional regulation as well. So in our own case, in addition to the medical device regulation and the in vitro diagnostic regulation, we also have another law on top, which we call the German Medical Device Law, the MPDG, and it covers all the aspects which are not covered in the other laws. And this is the legal basis for which we as an institute are able to regulate these products in our country, as well as the other institutes, which I will show next, which are also regulating medical devices in Germany. So just to kind of help you understand, our system is a bit complex as a country, but also as a region. The German system in particular is not so straightforward. So regulation of medicinal products, including vaccines, including medical devices, in vitro diagnostics in Germany is split between different agencies. All the agencies are federal agencies, meaning they're state agencies, and they are the ones which I have shown on the slide right now. And the Paul Ehrlich Institute, as it says in the name, we are the Federal Institute for Vaccines and Biomedicines, but also specifically for in vitro diagnostics. The institute that is actually primarily responsible for medical devices is our sister agency, which is the BfArM. And they are our sister agency because they are also regulating a lot of the regular medicinal products, which we are not regulating, because we regulate the advanced therapeutic molecules, we are regulating biomedicines and vaccines specifically. So you can see this very clear distinction between products, even though we are within the same system and we fall under the same ministry, we are separate entities. However, we are all using the same laws to regulate our products. And of course, there are other federal agencies such as the Robert Koch Institute and our Federal Institute for Public Health. This is the BIOG. So what does it mean that PI is regulating IVDs, in vitro diagnostics? Because we understand that in Africa right now, for a lot of our countries, there are no these clear distinctions. So just to kind of give you an idea, what does it look like to regulate medical devices or in vitro diagnostics? In our case, what we do is we, as an institute, we are contributing to the quality, the safety, the efficacy, as well as the availability of vaccines and biomedicines, but even especially the in vitro diagnostic devices. And actually, we are a European Union reference laboratory for in vitro diagnostic devices. What does that mean? That means for Europe, in vitro diagnostic devices are tested at the Paul Ehrlich Institute for the entire continent. And this was especially a very pertinent function within the region during COVID-19 because we were doing all the testings for all the COVID-19 test kits. So again, just to kind of show you how the framework is designed and structured in Europe and to see if there is any benchmarking or gleaning that we can do to apply onto the African continent. Also of note is the fact that we happen to also be a WHO collaboration center for blood products as well as for the standardization and evaluation of vaccines. So we also do vaccine testing. We test vaccines coming from the manufacturers before they are used in the general population. We do this for Germany, but we also do this for EU. And some of the vaccines we are also testing are used even in other places, including Africa. So remember I said we have this regional regulation where the EMA as a central regulatory body is regulating, but we also have at a national level our own duties. So here I just wanted to highlight the duties that we are performing as an institute when it comes to these in vitro diagnostic devices. So one of the most important things is we are doing the work of evaluating the incident reports. So even the terminology and the technical terms you use when you are speaking about in vitro devices or medical devices is different from the terminology you use when you're speaking of medicinal products and vaccines. So in the case of medicinal drugs or vaccines, we say adverse drug reaction. But when you are speaking of medical devices or you're speaking of a diagnostic test kit, you refer to what we say incident report. So this is part of our role and duty as an institution. The reporting of incidents concerning devices will come to us and we evaluate the risks associated with such reports. We are also assessing blood donation facilities. That means we do on-site inspections as well as inspections of diagnostic laboratories, whether they are of academic institutions or of private individuals. Also within our mandate, we are coordinating within the EU how certain assessments are performed concerning in vitro diagnostic devices. And again, as I said, as a state authority, it means we also are responsible for guiding some of our because we have different levels within the country, different levels of regulation. So we are federal, we are state, but beneath us, we have what you can call district regulation. So per district, there are other regulatory institutions, and we offer them guidance on how they should carry out their obligations as district regulators. So that is just to give you an overview. Louisa provided the background on vaccines, medicinal product regulation within EU. I just gave you an overview of medical devices, in vitro devices within EU. So enough about EU. Now we switch to the pertinent topic of today, and that is our Africa. So 55 countries, but we're divided into regions. The regions, it depends how you look at them. For most purposes, they are economic, but in some instances, they can even be considered to be divided in terms of health. And the idea is to not have these fragmented regions or these isolated regions, but to bring all the nations, all the regions together into one. And this would then be done through the African Medicines Agency. The African Medicines Agency is, I would say, envisioned to have the same role that we see the European Medicines Agency having. So you see how we demonstrated this kind of central regulation that is being done at the level of EMA, even though all the individual nations within Europe are also performing regulatory responsibilities within their own countries. So this is the idea for the African Medicines Agency, to also have a central place where we can have central source of data, source of information, and also a central place where there can be submission of safety data for the use of research and development or for the use of post-marketing surveillance, whether it's in the case of vigilance of medicines, vaccines, or medical devices. So the AMA in itself is operational, but we know that it's not fully operational, not yet. However, it is coming up slowly but surely. And the 6 main functions of the AMA would be to have the central regulation of marketing authorization, meaning licensing and registration of products in Africa, the inspection aspect, this would include both pharmacovigilance inspections as well as clinical trial inspections, market surveillance, especially post-marketing, safety monitoring, oversight of clinical trials, and quality control. With quality control, we mean in reference to testing, laboratory testing of vaccines as well as of medicinal products. Now, something to note that is very critical. When you look at the objectives of the AMA or you look at the mandate of the AMA, there is no clear distinction of AMA is regulating medicinal products, vaccines, cosmetics, medical devices. No. We just see the word medical products. This is the term that is used. I mean, we can all decide for ourselves if this is appropriate or if this is sufficient, or we think going forward, we need to find a way to show this distinction that we are seeing that is being demonstrated when you look at the European framework. Because it may be to our advantage that we don't really have the segregation of issues, but it may also be a disadvantage that things are not so clearly defined in our mandates and objectives. But of note is going forward now in this presentation, when we say medical product, it means we are referring to anything. It could be a vaccine, could be a drug, could be a device, because within the African context, there is no clear distinction. And this is not us saying there's no distinction. We mean if you look at what is existing in our structures right now, the distinction is not there. So even though there is this vision to have AMA as a central regulator for the continent, what is very good to note and very applaudable is the fact that at the national level, a lot of African countries have very well established pharmacovigilance systems. What I have done here, I have just selected 4 countries in the 4 different areas of Africa. These countries were not chosen based on anything. Please do not think that I somehow think these are more superior in any way or form. I just wanted to take a sample from East, North, South, and West of Africa to just show how the national systems or how the national laws are structured. And of interest and also in alignment with how AMA is structured is for each one of these regulators, the regulation of products is all-inclusive. There is no distinction, or rather, let's say the law includes everything in it. So there's no separate law, for medicines and vaccines, separate from medical devices, separate. No, the laws cover all of the products. And in most cases, if you read through the regulations for the different countries, it clearly states, and in most cases, it's a long list of all the products that are covered under the specific regulation. This is just something to take note of and to ask ourselves, going forward, do we think that we perhaps need to start considering medical products, medical devices, in vitro diagnostic devices as separate entities, considering that there are differences in safety issues when it comes to different products? Or do we think that this is not necessarily something that we need to be concerned about as of now? It's just a thought. Okay, so now having kind of given this overview of structures in terms of at the continental level and at the regional level, let's now switch and talk about, okay, what are the areas for improvement though within Africa? Where do we think that we need to start developing our systems, okay? Because great, we have the AMA, we have most countries have their own PV systems in place. So what is the issue? What is the problem? Why are we still talking about strengthening? What is it that we are strengthening? Where are the weaknesses? That is the question. So the foundation of any regulatory system is the law. Without a law, without a legislation, an institution does not have any real authority, which is why it was a pertinent issue even to note when we were discussing ISOP in the beginning, to say that ISOP does not necessarily have any legal basis within the African continent. So why is it so important though to say, okay, you can't say you're regulating with any real authority if you don't have any laws in place? because the laws are what gives an institution the ability to enforce regulations. And even if you have an act, you have a law that states that as a manufacturer, as a distributor, or as any kind of retailer within a country, you are expected to meet certain obligations if you are selling or marketing medicines or vaccines or medical devices. You still then need to clearly define in a regulation, in addition to the act, you need to then define what is it exactly that you're regulating. And even with a regulation, there is still need to clearly describe and define in a guideline what are the specific things that you as a regulator are going to be looking for when you say you are regulating entities in your territory. So let's be real and let's be honest with ourselves. It takes years to build infrastructure, even the legal infrastructure. As Louisa has already told you, we are working in this project called VacTrain. We have African partner countries we've been working hand in hand with for the past about 7-8 years. When we started with some of these countries, they did not have regulations in place concerning pharmacovigilance. And we are happy to say we have managed with some of the countries to actually draft regulations. And after many review cycles, those regulations have been passed as laws in those countries. So we have managed to take one country, from a place of having no legal basis for regulating pharmacovigilance to now being able to legally require companies within their countries to submit pharmacovigilance obligations. So because we work in this area and this is what we do on a day-to-day, we understand it's not easy. It is very difficult, especially looking at a lot of the changes that can happen or that take place every time there is political change, meaning there's elections, we change governments, something happens, change of leadership. These are some of the challenges that always factor in when you're trying to build the infrastructure, especially the legal one. Because every time a parliament changes, then you have to resubmit. It goes to parliament. Parliament is delaying for whatever reason. Then again, so just the process itself of drafting the law, having it approved in parliament or a regulation is so tedious, and it can take so much time, as we have experienced personally in our project. So we know that it's not an easy thing that you just wake up and say, okay, let's now have laws. But we are happy to say that a lot of countries are now currently working towards building the legal infrastructure. And now I will hand over to Louisa to talk more on why there is this this new interest in building up structures and how that is going to look.
Thank you very much, Theo. So in the next slide, we would like to have a focus on the different challenges that we have observed, but that are also available, and you can read about them in the literature, in the media, etc., where that still exists in the African safety surveillance system, and how these gaps are aimed to be overcome. And in line with the previous slide, I would like to highlight first a major challenge which Theo has highlighted. This is gaps in the regulatory framework. So as she has outlined, that is effective regulatory systems are really critical to ensure quality, safety, and efficacy of medicinal products. And here I would like to highlight a tool to objectively evaluate national regulatory systems. This is a WHO tool, which is called the Global Benchmarking Tool, short GBT. And on the right-hand side, you can see a small figure that represents how the different regulatory systems are divided into maturity levels. So this is in line with an ISO standard, so a quality management standard. And we have maturity levels 1 to 4, with level 1 standing for the lowest maturity of the regulatory systems. This means no formal approach exists, up to level 4. Level 4 is the highest maturity level, and it means that there is a system that continuously improves itself. And as you can see on the figure on the right-hand side, actually the target that was determined by the World Health Assembly Resolution 67.20 is obtaining maturity level 3. What does that mean? That means a stable formal system approach. This means a stable and well-functional regulatory system. And this global benchmarking tool does not only benchmark vaccines, but it also helps to benchmark regulatory programs across multiple product types, such as medicines, blood products, and also medical devices. And as you can imagine, African countries are at different maturity levels and at different pharmacovigilance competencies. A few countries, however, have an outstanding pharmacovigilance systems, with 8 countries operating at maturity level 3, which are Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Senegal, and Rwanda. However, the majority do not have a fully functional system, and as Theo highlighted, in projects like our project, there are multiple projects existing which have similar goals, support African countries in developing robust regulatory framework, whereby we need to say we are really just supporting the main work. All the credit really goes to the agency and the people who are working in these agencies. On the next slide, I would like to go one step further. I would like to highlight an issue that is not specific to the African continent. I would say it's more a general issue. This is low AEFI reporting, AEFI meaning adverse event following immunization. It is an adverse event after immunization, or low awareness of pharmacovigilance. And this is something that we observe in our work. However, it is also, you can read it in review articles that have been published in the past years. And here I brought 2 review articles with me, one from Moyo et al. They describe that not even 1% of the individual case safety reports, short ICSRs, which can be found in Vigibase, which is the WHO's global database for ICSRs, come from Africa. And if you consider that Africa nearly consists or contributes to 20% of the world population, there's a clear imbalance and underrepresentation. The authors also investigated where do these ICSRs come from, and actually they found that 50% came from Nigeria, South Africa, and Morocco. And last week I went to the Vigibase and I checked, and I found that the picture has changed a bit, but we still have overrepresentation of some of the countries that are really strong in reporting, and other countries do not really submit reports to this database, which means that the local population will be underrepresented. Another publication also highlights that they assessed 4 East African countries, and they asked healthcare facilities if they had reported medicines-related harm in the previous year, and only 1% answered with yes. And this really indicates that we need to strengthen the reporting of adverse events and raise awareness of pharmacovigilance. So on the next slide, we can see highlighted some underlying issues. These issues may not be true for all the instances. Maybe there are other issues. However, I chose some that are also described in the literature, which is the absence of robustness of AFI reporting systems. So it's not really clear how to report. And sometimes the process takes a lot of work. Further, there is a lack of trained personnel, and we are going to talk about this lack of trained personnel later on. Further, there is lacking awareness of the importance of AEFI reporting. In some cases, people are not even able to identify what is an AEFI. Then I would like to highlight the high workload of healthcare professionals. So healthcare professionals might prioritize treating patients to actually submitting adverse events reports to some regulatory agency, especially if it is not clear what is the purpose of this. Then we are going to talk about the next point on one of the next slides. This is collaboration among different stakeholders, and ultimately fear of blame and legitimation by healthcare professionals. And here I would like to highlight an example that we observed quite recently. There was a vaccination of a child in a vaccination program, and the child unfortunately passed away one day following the immunization. And it's very well understandable that the family grieved the loss of their child. However, the family was reported to have come back to the vaccination site and even threatened the vaccinator. And this really shows that in this context, there was no awareness of pharmacovigilance, no awareness that this vaccinator did not try to kill the child, but that this was most likely an adverse event following the immunization. So these issues are actively targeted. We can see that every day. For instance, public and healthcare professionals are sensitized in sensitization campaigns. And for instance, our project also supports such endeavors. And this strengthens, in turn, passive surveillance. Further, there are initiatives to build capacity for active surveillance, for instance, by establishing sentinel hospitals and regional coordination platforms. Also, AI or electronic tools help to even fill out, for instance, reports. And I would like to highlight here that not only the low AFI reporting is an issue, however, we also, to detect a signal, need a comparator, and this comparator are background rates. So for the detection of safety signals, the number of reports following immunization is compared to the background rate. This means the number of expected cases of an event without vaccination. And these background rates are often missing for the African population. For instance, I would like to highlight a publication by the Global Vaccine Data Network. This network is a multinational research network which has a primarily interest in vaccine safety and effectiveness, and it operates, let's say, around the globe. So it operates in nearly 30 countries, and it is based in New Zealand. And here, they state that background rates of events are essential for early and rapid assessment of AFIs. However, it is observed that African countries often need to rely on global data, which then, if you imagine, as you can imagine, do not reflect the local populations. So especially for emerging vaccines, which target diseases that are endemic to Africa, no prior safety data exists. And the study of these background rates really helps to interpret the occurrence of adverse events of special interest following vaccination, safety signals, and it guides decisions and builds public trust in vaccines. And there are multiple projects, and some projects of this Global Vaccine Data Network, but also WHO projects which are focusing on studying these background rates. In the following slides, I would like to take a step back and have a look at the PV systems. Please move one back. The isolation of PV systems. So this is something that we observe, but you can also read in different reports that PV systems in Africa are often observed to be isolated and to lack internal communication, which really delays safety responses and limits the timely and effective data collection and analysis. And we also observed the case where the report an adverse event report was reported to a vaccination site. Then this was reported to a person outside the country, and then this person reported back to the national regulatory authority. And this really led to a delay of several weeks to 2-3 months until the NRA became aware of this report. And you can imagine the NRA then has no possibility to quickly act on emerging signals. Underlying issues are absence of harmonized safety surveillance frameworks and underutilization of digital technologies for safety monitoring. And also different stakeholders, such as manufacturers and other stakeholders, exhibit poor safety data sharing, which further delays the safety responses. And here I would like to highlight, just to give a short snapshot, at the AU3S project, which was launched under AUDA-NEPAD in 2020. And AU3S stands for African Union Smart Safety Surveillance. And its aim is to continentally strengthen PV systems in Africa by enhancing the safety surveillance for vaccines, medicines, and medical devices. And they do different tasks. They implement electronic safety data collection tools, such as the MedSafety app, for faster reporting. They help to roll out this data collection tools in the country and train on the utilization of these tools. Further, the aim is to integrate the data into a common platform for cross-country signal detection, which is called pharmacovigilance. They also aim to establish an AU PRAC for signal management, so Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, and they support capacity building across national PV systems. In the next slide, I would like to highlight a point that you are all very well aware of. It's the lack of qualified personnel. There are several underlying issues. Here are some examples. It's the training may be incoherent of the regulatory workforce. It may not be really targeted to the people that are actually doing the work. Then a lot of agencies suffer from weak infrastructure, which are a result of unsustainable healthcare financing mechanisms. And here I would really like to highlight the RCOR concept. So this was started in or established in 2014, and RCOR is short for Regional Centers of Regulatory Excellence. RCORs are institutions or partnerships of institutions, you will see that in the next slide, that have recognized expertise in regulatory science and ability to deliver training in key regulatory areas. And these RCORs aim to build skilled regulatory workforce, strengthen institutional capacities, and raise regulatory standards across Africa. RCORs provide academic and technical training to support effective health product regulation. And just as an example, our project also closely works with RCORs. So in beginning last of 2024, we supported the RCOR in Zimbabwe in conducting clinical trial trainings for one of the countries in the region. And earlier this year, our project supported a PV inspection training with the RCOR in Ghana. And I would like to hand over to my colleague for the last part of this presentation to talk a bit more about RCORs.
Thank you, Louisa. So we are really building up. I would say there is a momentum. We are, as a continent, unified in our pursuit of a harmonization of our pharmacovigilance structures. Yes, there are still a lot of gaps. There are a lot of challenges, both at the regional or continental level and also at the national level. But one of the ways that we can really build on our strengths is to utilize this RCOR system that we have. So on the screen right now, we are projecting the different RCORs and the different elements that they are functioning in. And also to note is the partnership that is happening between the countries. So it is not just about, let's take, for example, South Africa having an excellent system in place concerning quality assurance and quality control, but they also then partner with NAFDAC, being the agency in Nigeria, who have also excelling in that area, and together they are able to provide high-level expertise and technical support on this topic. So it's a new thing. It's coming up slowly, but it's a good place for us to start building our continental system. And also to kind of tie into the next topic, which is the issue of reliance. So the WHO has already clearly said that if we are going to manage this sustainable development goal of One Health for all of us, we need to build a system where we can rely on each other. And what does to rely mean in the context of safety, whether it's of vaccines or medical devices? Reliance means the ability to depend on information that is coming from one source without necessarily verifying or checking it. And the only way that we are going to be able to rely on each other, whether it's within the African continent itself, or intercontinental reliance is if the national systems are built up to a certain level or to a certain standard where we can trust the data coming out of that country. And this is then how we go back to the issue of the WHO global benchmarking tool and why we are trying to get all the countries to at least be at level 3. So reliance in and of itself would not solve every problem, but it would definitely reduce the workload. As Louisa already mentioned, we do have a scarcity of trained and experienced workforce, especially when it comes to this topic of pharmacovigilance. So if we are to apply reliance as a sustainable solution, it means when one country receives application for a new medical device, they if they are already of a high maturity level, their outcome of that assessment can then be used by all the other countries in Africa to say, I'll pick one country, again, randomly, not favoring anybody over anyone. But if Ghana FDA assesses a medical device and decides it's safe enough to use, we have done the risk-benefit analysis and we have decided the risks, the benefit outweighs the risk, then all the other countries in Africa should be able to take that assessment as their own and say, this device has been assessed and we are sure that it's safe. We can rely on the information coming out of Ghana. Another way of doing it is to do work sharing where, they are joint reviews of applications, whether it's of vaccines or whether it's of clinical trials for vaccines or applications for marketing for a medical device, marketing authorization of medical devices. And this is also a way to minimize the workload that would then be required. If 3 different regulatory officers are needed to perform an assessment, some of our countries in Africa have as little as only 4 individuals working in PV and CT. So you can imagine if 3 of them are going to dedicate 2 weeks or even 1 month assessing, a specific product safety issues before it can be allowed to be used in the general population. This would really take a lot of their time. So if instead 3 agencies can, contribute 1 officer, then you have a team of 3 or 4 officers from 4 different countries sit together, do an assessment together, and the outcome of that assessment then be used by all the nations involved. And this would then be considered a joint assessment, and the results can be applied across the board. So just to kind of show what we mean by reliance and how it would work as a sustainable solution. And just to take you back again for comparison's sake, in the EU, we are using reliance a lot. EMA, this European Medicines Agency, yes, it's a central agency for the whole of Europe, but essentially it's just made up of the different countries. So if Germany assesses a vaccine and says it's safe, the entire Europe will proceed to allow for marketing authorization. They will license that vaccine in their nations without performing any further testing, because they are relying on Germany's assessment. It was tested in Germany. The Paul Ehrlich Institute tested it. They say it's safe. The quality is where it should be. Then we can use it even in Spain, France, all over Europe. So this is a tried and tested model of working. It can be applied in Africa, of course, not copy paste, but in a way that would then work for us. And I think, as I already mentioned, with this core system that we have in place, that is a good place to start with the reliance, because the countries that are the RCOs, if you notice, are also the countries that are already maturity level 3. So then they can be deemed reliable in terms of the assessments and the safety data that they produce. So the question is, okay, all this that has been said, what is the way forward? How do we envision, how some of these gaps can be closed? I mean, we've already discussed some of the issues, but just to kind of summarize and wrap it all up, at a continental level, we still need to come together as a continent. And not all of us have signed or ratified the AMA Treaty. And by us, I mean countries. So this is an area that would definitely benefit from a bit more concerted effort from us as a continent. And also, each country needs to really be more invested in getting itself to maturity level 3, whether it's through the support of projects such as the one that we are working in, this Vactrine project, or through other projects, or even just through our core support. And again, another solution is agreements between countries. So what we did under the Vactrine project, we encouraged our partners, because they are in the same region, they're in West Africa, we encouraged them to actually develop a memorandum of understanding between themselves. So they are 3 countries. They have all 3 benefited from our support in the area of pharmacovigilance and clinical trial oversight. And we said to them, because you're small countries, you don't have much of, their populations are quite small and their agencies are quite small. Why not have an official documented relationship where you are able to do work sharing with one another, where you're able to do joint work with one another? And even as we speak, one of them is going to do a GVP inspection very soon, and they have invited other officers from the other countries to come in and help with the inspection. And this is one of the ways that we can envision moving forward, working together, collaborating as countries, as neighbors, but even as regions, and even as a continent together. And at the national level, we can, as individual countries, do different things. Of course, there are different levels of economic ability. There are different levels of maturity in terms of pharmacovigilance systems. But one thing we can all agree on across the continent, we can all work on our health literacy levels. This issue of underreporting that Louisa was speaking about, it really stems from the general population just not having an adequate level of health literacy. And that generally just means the African populace is not yet quite familiar with the concept of, when I take a medicine, it is going to make me ill or well or both. Yeah, for it to some degree, a lot of us are just still in the thinking that if it's a medicine, it's going to heal me, it's going to make me better. We need to do more to teach our people that there is no medicinal product that is without risk. There is a risk with every single one of them. Even the most established of products in the market have risk. You can always develop an ADR, whether it's with a drug you just started today or a drug that you've been on for 25 years, you can develop an ADR even after taking a medicine for many years. So just this kind of foundational basic health literacy is something that is missing. I'm glad to know that amongst us here today, there are some people with an academic or from the academia industry, and we need to think about how we can incorporate pharmacovigilance, drug safety, vaccine safety into our curriculums. And we need to decide for ourselves as African nations or as the continent, at what level do we want our people to start having a good understanding of these topics? It can be taught even at primary level, primary education or basic education level, depending on how you phrase it, how you frame it for a child's mind. Or we can decide, no, at least the adults need to be well informed on these topics. Let this be a standard topic in all of our high school level classes or whatever the case may be. Or it can be a basic course that is taught in universities across the continent, no matter what your degree program is. So these are just some ideas to show that there's still quite a lot to do, and the way forward is varied depending on what we are trying to achieve objectively. And on this one of health literacy, I would say we can talk about it for a long time. I think we could have a whole conversation about this one. And also Louisa touched on the issue of background rates. Right now in Africa, if you were to ask me what is the occurrence of vomiting in Africa at any given point in time, with or without a vaccine, I don't know. Where am I going to get that statistic? So if we then vaccinate a population of 1 million people today, and I don't know, 5% of them are vomiting, Is that 5% normal or abnormal? This is the issue with background rates. We don't know what happens under normal circumstances, meaning without introduction of vaccine into the population. So once we have introduced vaccines, then is it clear to us what is abnormal or normal? Is it something we should be relating to the vaccine or not? These are some of the issues that we can only solve by doing more research, by doing more studies, whether they are epidemiological studies, observational studies, whatever the case may be. But this is definitely one of the things we need to look into moving forward. And of course, we need to put money into things. Money is at the core of a lot of things, whether it's education, whether it's developing infrastructure, there has to be financial resources that are put towards national efforts. And individually, I'm happy to say we are here now, and this is exactly what we should be doing at an individual level. Attending seminars, doing knowledge sharing sessions, networking, finding out how people are doing things in their settings, in their areas. I was really happy to see, Juliet, when you were presenting what the APN offers, that you have an academy and you have courses, and you're offering a course on pharmacovigilance. Yes, there is a fee attached to it. You have to pay for it. Knowledge is not free under any circumstance. So we can, at an individual level, each try to educate ourselves by joining such courses, signing up. I'm not selling the course. I'm just saying I'm not affiliated to APN in any way or form, but let us keep continuing to create opportunities, for us as people working in the area and in the field, so that we can grow our systems, our systems, whether it's at the national or at the continental level, together. Thank you so much, everybody. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you, Louisa, and thank you to ISOP and APN.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pio and Dr. Louise. It's been a great and wonderful session, learning and also getting to see what is it that we can also learn from the EU to bring into Africa, not as copy and paste, but something that is going to be effective, create something that will be effective for the continent. And we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And we really appreciate this session this afternoon, that we are here to share knowledge and share best practices with each other. So I have some questions for you here, but before I get to the questions, I saw a hand up. Damaris, if you are here with us, let me know if you have a question for our presenters today. So I'll be enabling your mic shortly. Just let me know when you're ready. But in the meantime, let me just get some questions here for our presenters, all right? So I have Grace for you here, and she says, thank you, Dr. Luis and Dr. Pio. This was a great presentation. What strategies would you recommend to address the issue of gathering quality data to impact effective safety surveillance systems in Africa?
So thank you so much for this question. It's really an interesting question, and I would like to start answering this question. And if my colleague Theo has something to add, I would like to invite her to add something to this. So it is the question: how are we actually able to get high quality data? So some things, they really lie on the hand. So we need more resources, for example, for healthcare professionals. We need more healthcare professionals in general, so they have more time to actually do the tasks. We need better system, more straightforward system, especially now we are moving away from paper-based forms onto mobile apps. And I would like to go here a bit more deeper. So this is my personal opinion on this topic. We need to move away from only healthcare workers or medical doctors can actually submit case reports. We need to develop our systems in such a way that even a layman can type in, I have this and that adverse event, and then the artificial intelligence automatically translates this to the medical term, to the MEDRA coding. Or I can give an example of the Paul Ehrlich Institute. So we have a reporting page, a web page, where you can actually click. There is a little human sign, and you can click where is the adverse event occurring. Is it in your head? And then it will automatically say, do you have a headache? Do you feel sick? And then you can simply click. And I think we really need to use easy to use tools, because, for example, for the German population, this has worked quite well. And during COVID, they were champions in reporting, no matter what, more or less, which means more work for our PV department. However, I think this would be a great way to encourage people to submit data. And what was actually done, I don't have the numbers on the top of my head right now. However, it was found that actually the reports that are submitted by laymen, by patients, by consumers, they are not of such a bad quality as you might think in the beginning, because they really fill these forms with due diligence, and the quality is actually, yeah, really good. I hope that answered the question.
Grace, I hope you have been answered. And I have a comment here from Crusher Whitley-Smith, and she's in support of what Dr. Pio was saying. And she's saying in schools, it can be presented as competition so that students will have to research the topic with much interest, and a tangible reward can be given unto them. So this is to boost health and literacy in the continent. That would be an amazing thing. So we also have Gabriel here, and he says, as we look to strengthen Africa's pharmaceutical sector, what is our current understanding of the skills gap, and what would be a viable target for a trained workforce to serve a population of 1.5 billion people?
Thank you for that question, Gabriel. Before I address that question, let me just take us back to the previous question by Grace concerning quality and how do we ensure that we are able to produce quality data coming out of Africa. This issue is also very applicable when we come to the issue of clinical trials. So for clinical trials, it's actually pertinent that our data is of the utmost highest quality, because it will then be used even outside of Africa to make certain regulatory decisions. And the beginning of data does not even start with the clinical trial itself. It starts even just with the protocol. So the question is, right now in Africa, how are we assessing clinical trial applications? Do we know what to look for in terms of, is the way this study designed even feasible to produce the outcome that it hopes to produce? Because when assessing, the quality of the data coming out, you're going to start from the beginning with even just the research question. What were they even looking for? How did they select the study participants? Why did they decide to measure certain variables and not others? So these are the things that then determine if the data coming out of the studies we are authorizing in our countries, if it can be considered of a high quality or not. And then to tie it in with Gabriel's question, in terms of workforce and skill, I mean, I'm not in the business of human resource management and this kind of thing, but just as a scientist applying myself, I would say to you, Gabriel, that the skills gap that we have identified in our work so far is that our people are educated. There are plenty of colleges and universities in Africa that are graduating without fail every year, pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, doctors, nurses, biomedical scientists. We have more than adequate number of the right qualified professionals coming out of our academic institutions. However, the issue now comes in here. A lot of them coming out of university will end up in clinical practice. They will end up in retail. They will end up in other areas of functions within the industry, but not specifically the pharma industry. And the reason for this is our pharma industry is really not yet that developed in Africa. There is not much manufacturing happening in Africa. There is not much post marketing survey, as in, we are not really producing, and therefore even just starting with the production of vaccines is not a thing. So a lot of us do not have the practical experience starting there. So then you can imagine if it's mostly importation. So we have a lot of distributors procuring from manufacturers outside of Africa and bringing the drugs in. Now, these distributors, most of them are businessmen and women. They are not medical professionals, and they are the ones registering the drugs, and they are the ones distributing the drugs. And the question is, okay, who then is doing the collection of ADRs and all of the things that need to be done concerning those products? Because it cannot be our brothers and sisters who started business and economics and accounting and all of those things. And I'm not speaking down on them. I'm just stating a fact of the matter. The skill gap is there, where the qualified professionals are working in areas of fields where they do not get to experience a lot of the pharmaceutical obligations and requirements, because the industry is not big enough for all of us to, or for a lot of us to get that experience. And in our pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of procurement by distributors, and these are commercial business. It's a commercial thing. It's not a health thing. I don't know if my point is coming across, that it's not really well established in terms of pharmacovigilance agreements, safety data exchange agreements between the manufacturers and the distributors. So because if there is a pharmacovigilance agreement and a safety data exchange agreement between a vaccine manufacturer and the distributor, the local distributor in an African country, then it means there has to be a pharmacist or someone who is qualified to ensure that that PV agreement is being honored in as much as the commercial agreement is being honored. In the same way that they agree that you'll sell so many units, you will do this, you will do that, there needs to be that pharmacovigilance agreement to say, please, you have to collect all the adverse events following immunization and you have to report them to us. These are the timelines that you have to do it. This is the form that you have to use. It is the form that is aligned to ICH and aligned to WHO. All of these things are currently not really in place, if we are being honest. And we're not saying this out of just opinion. This is the practical experience we are seeing on the ground, that if you go for a GVP inspection of a local distributor and you ask them, may I see the safety data exchange agreement between yourself and your manufacturer? It doesn't exist. And because it doesn't exist, they are not worried about doing pharmacovigilance for that medicinal product. And therefore, it's just not being done. So I don't know, Gabriel, if that answers your question. I hope it enlightens somehow. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Hill, for that response. Gabriel, you can just give us a thumbs up. Your question has been answered. So we are a little bit past our time, but please allow me to share just one more question with you, and then we can have the Q&A session, and then we'll, sorry, not the Q&A session, but we'll get some feedback from the audience on how the session was, and then we can call it an evening. So based on the challenges outlined in advancing pharmacovigilance systems in Africa, how can we foster ongoing harmonization efforts, especially with the AU3S that was conceptualized in 2020? Dr. Pio, I can see you're speaking, but you're speaking on mute.
Okay, sorry, Juliet. Thank you for that question. So I think the harmonization is already underway. As we already explained, we are doing this work of the project that we are working in. And the idea behind the way we are doing the project, we are not leaving the information with us. It is a trainer of trainee system where the expectation is such that whoever who receives training from us must go on to train other people in their area of work, whatever country they may come from. And seeing as we make contact with quite a number of countries, the hope is it will grow just from having locals that are trained to train other locals. The use of AUDA-NEPAD's system, the surveillance system, we do need more uptake on this one. It is currently, unfortunately, the reality that some countries are honestly not yet even able to begin to integrate themselves into that system and use it fully. And that stems from the fact that they are still just dealing with the basic thing of building up their national system. They're still drafting guidelines, or they're still drafting regulation. So I think until we see more nations moving from maturity level of 1 maybe to 2, then we will see more nations now integrating themselves into the continental surveillance system. The other question, or the other issue I have on a personal note, is I think even the system itself, the AU3S system, it needs a bit more marketing. It's I don't know if it's that well known. Some of us, we know about it because it's the work we do. But if you were to go on the ground to a local clinic somewhere in some country in Africa and ask them, do you know about this thing? They'll tell you, me, I don't even know what you're talking about. So this is exactly the issue, that, it may be in place, it may be, there, but do we know about it? So I think there's still quite a lot of just education that we need to do amongst ourselves as healthcare workers, as the professionals working within the industry. But also, like I said, we have a lot of national challenges that we're still facing. So for us to build this continental system, whether it's the surveillance one or it's the reporting or whatever the case may be, we first need to build up the national systems before we can have a strong continental system.
Very true, Dr. Phil. Thank you so much for responding to that question. It's an interesting one, because this one is right with an innovation that is right within the continent. And now we are asking ourselves, what do we know about this innovation, and how are we using it even? Are we even able to use it, So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us this evening. So while I'll be sharing the comments that we've gathered from the session, I want to welcome each and every one of us to give us your feedback on how you found the session today. Please remember that this is an industry discussion forum. It is in collaboration with ISO Africa Chapter, and it is for the purpose of knowledge sharing and sharing best practices as well. So while we are disseminating this valuable information to you, it is also with the interest that you will use it, you will apply it in your institution, in your country, in your district, to be able to impact the lives of patients in your country. So at this moment, please go ahead and let us know how you found this session. I know it was amazing from the comments that I'm seeing online, which I am about to read. But please go ahead and join us on menti.com. Just type menti.com on your browser. You'll be requested for a code when you get to the voting meter. And the code is 37479948. The Menti code is 37479948. So, and these are the comments that I'm getting here. Everyone is loving the session. Great, from Dr. Whitley, Russia. She's saying, excellent presentation. I look forward to getting the slides to review. Fantastic. Eobed from EFDA, that is Ethiopia, he's saying thanks a lot. And then I have Gidinji saying thank you. Thank you so much. I have Suleiman saying thank you to you. I hope you can still hear me. Thank you. I was lost there for a bit. Thank you so much. Your responses are coming in. And while we are on that, I would like to share our final remarks with you, with each and every one of us. And let me just welcome Dr. Jayesh, if you're still in the call with us, so that you can share your final remarks with us. So let me know if you're still on the call. All right. All right. All right, then I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Pio, then to Louise to share your final remarks. Then we will call it an evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. I mean, thank you so much for inviting us, for having us to have this session. And we do not in any form claim to know everything about what is happening. We can only share our experiences. I trust that a lot of the very highly qualified people in the comment section also would have quite a bit to say on this topic. And thank you for the work you're doing as APN, for providing, a platform for us to discuss certain issues. Thank you for ISOP to supporting the APN, and looking forward to further engagements, to further attending some of your events. Thank you, Juliet.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Ari. Over to you, Dr. Louise.
Thank you so much, Juliet. And yeah, thank you to all the audience, the APN, to the ISOP African chapter. It was really a pleasure and an honor to be part of this important discussion. I would have loved this discussion to continue even now afterwards, but now it's well deserved end of the day, and I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and sending greetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Louise and Dr. Pio. We'll definitely be inviting you again. I'm truly hoping that you'll accept our invite so that we can take the conversation deeper. As you had said, we can't finish the conversation today. There's so much to learn, but we'll definitely be reaching out to you again. And I want to acknowledge the presence of our curator, Dr. Odhiambo David, who is in this call with us. David, if you'd like to say a word and close out the session for us, please do let me know. All right. Fantastic. It is well. It is well. So with that, we've come to the end of our session, and I want to wish you the very best of your evening. We'll be sharing the slides and the recording with you as well. To those who are joining us in Kenya, this session is CPD accredited by PPB. Go ahead and subscribe for the session on the portal. For those who are joining us beyond the borders of Kenya, you will receive a certificate of participation that you can use to claim your CPD points at the relevant authority in your country. And with that, thank you so much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.